You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 211. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad you're here. In fact, I'm especially glad you pressed play on today's episode because we are exploring an important topic that I think many of us, either intentionally or unintentionally, tend to overlook. And by pressing play right now, you are bringing attention to the topic, which is awesome. So, what is the topic we're talking about today? Well, today and in next week's episode, we are talking about the topic of fun and play. And more specifically, we're talking about how we can figure out what we like to do for fun in the first place, and then what we can do to actually make time for that fun within our busy, awesome lives. Now, I was inspired to create this episode thanks to an email from someone in our Busy Awesome community named Laura, who was asking about this very question. She wrote, how do you make planning fun activities something that you do regularly, monthly or quarterly? Do you put it on your calendar as a recurring event? Do you create a recurring task in your task manager? Or do you create a checklist to run through weekly or monthly? I'd love to hear what you do to make this a habit. A podcast episode on this, maybe? And after reading this message, I thought to myself, this is such an important question to explore. And I know for a fact, because I've heard it from so many different people, that making time for fun within our packed, busy schedules, it's an incredibly challenging thing to do, right? That's so hard for so many of us. So I knew this topic would be incredibly important for us to explore. So first of all, thank you for sending this great question, Laura. I so appreciate it. And as a reminder for all of you listeners, if you have a topic on your mind that you would love to hear explored on the podcast, please send it my way. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm at I'm Busy Being Awesome, or you can drop me an email, Paula at I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com. I would love to hear your suggestions and what is front and center in your mind so that I can create a podcast on it. All right. So like I said, I have been thinking about this topic of fun and play and Laura's question specifically quite a bit over the last several weeks. And while I could just share my exact approach to how I make time for fun and that sort of thing, that's just one approach that works for me. And the truth is, we all have such different lives and schedules and demands and ways that we like to have fun. So I thought, I wonder if it might be more helpful for you as the listener if I created a simple system that you can easily adapt and adopt in your life to fit your needs. And that is exactly what I'm going to share over these next two episodes. So in this episode, in 211, we are going to talk briefly about having fun generally and why so many of us struggle to make time for it and why it's actually important to do. Why it is so key for us to make time for play. And then we're also going to talk about how we can actually identify what we like to do for fun. Because again, as it turns out, this is a real challenge for so many of us. And then next week, we are going to deep dive into Laura's specific question about how we make time in our busy schedules for fun and play more often. Now, here's the deal. Like I said, so many of us have a pretty hard time carving out intentional space to relax, to have fun, to play. In fact, I polled people on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and so many people shared that they really struggle to make time for fun because they don't classify it as quote unquote productive or quote unquote helpful in their mind. So they have a hard time justifying making time for it in their schedule at all because it's just not seen as a good use of their time. And I'm guessing that your brain might be able to relate to this on some level. You might not agree with it entirely, but part of your brain probably just went, yeah, I can kind of understand that. I kind of see where it's coming from. So many of us have had experiences in the past when we've fallen behind in our schedule, or we simply couldn't keep up with the workload. There was too much. Or we've been late on a deadline. And this might be when we were in school. It might be with our current career or our workload generally. It might be our personal lives. It doesn't matter, right? And then with ADHD brains, because we struggle with time blindness, we also tend to overcommit to things. We overcommit to work and to projects and to committees without really pausing to recognize what we can realistically take on. We have a hard time recognizing how much time these things are going to take. And because we struggle to pace ourselves with work quite often, and we wait until we experience that sense of urgency to kick in at the last minute when we get started, a lot of us have developed these stories about always being behind, about always having so much work that we have to do. And we couldn't possibly slow down to rest or play or have any kind of fun because we have too much on our plate, too much to do. So we start repeating these familiar phrases like, well, that sounds really great, but I'm not going to be able to get to it until after I get all my work done. Once I finish this, then I'll rest. Then I'll go on that vacation. Then I'll start that fun project. Then I'll get to play. Now, please do not start blaming yourself for having this perspective. This is what so many of us have. Okay, there's a good reason that we've developed this pattern and why we tell ourselves these things. I mean, we've been living this way for most of our lives. How often did you hear either for yourself or you heard from your friends or you heard in the media, don't go out and play until your chores are done. You can't go to the movies until you finish your homework. All the time, right? And I'm not saying that these positions are inherently bad, that it's bad to want to finish your work before you do something else. In fact, I think they can be useful at times. But what I am saying is that when those of us who like to do a lot of things have an endless list of ideas and a never-ending to-do list as well that we constantly add to, that is when the perspective can hold us back. When we tell ourselves, once I get everything done, then I can play. Because when your work never ends because you keep adding to the list and you only make time for fun when you finish your work, you never make time to play. And that's a real bummer. So if you're feeling discontent or you're feeling restless or you're feeling frustrated because all you ever do is work and you feel like you're just always playing catch up and you're driven entirely by your to-do list, this could be an indication that your life is craving a little bit more fun and a little bit more play. Ask me how I know, because I've been there. And it's our job to intentionally create that space as often as possible. Now, I also realize that everybody's situations are, of course, very different. Some of us don't have the privilege to make time for a lot of fun and play very often. And I hear that and I respect that so much. And also, even in those extreme situations, we can maybe play around to find ways to create short moments, just a few minutes, where we intentionally slow down to close our eyes and breathe for 3 minutes. Or we tune into our favorite playlists on our commute to work and just listen to something that brings us a lot of delight, whatever it is. Anything we can do to help bring a little more fun and a potential way to break up the daily grind just a little bit. So whatever amount of time that you can create for fun and play, I encourage you to lean into the idea of prioritizing it. Now, as a side note, I also want to mention that this episode is a reminder to myself, just as it is to all of you listening. Okay, this is a big growth edge for me as well. I can always benefit from the reminder that it's okay to slow down and have fun and not work all the time. Okay, so it's a reminder for me too. But what I can tell you is that based on my own personal experience and on all the research I've done around play and my work coaching hundreds of ADHD brains over the years, when we can create more space for fun and play and rest in our lives, that is the secret sauce to both success and living a full life. This is the magic. So as you're learning to work with and support your ADHD brain and you're learning all the tools to help you get more things done, it's equally, if not more important, to make sure you're learning how to rest and recharge as well, because we do not need more ADHDers and burnout. Let me tell you, we need time to be humans. As I frequently remind myself and everyone here who tunes into the podcast and tends to forget, we are not robots. We are humans. And this means that as humans, and especially as humans with ADHD brains, we, first of all, feel big feelings. We have big feelings as ADHD brains. Secondly, we need to rest and recharge. It's so easy to slip into hyperfocus and go, 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 go. And we need to recharge. And then third, we thrive when we get to connect with ourselves and with others through creation and play and fun. We need time to challenge and engage our brains in new ways, in creative ways, and in ways that create this delight. And we can do that more easily when we step out of the daily grind and into more of what lights us up. And when we do that more regularly, it helps us to alleviate that stress and that overwhelm we're carrying around. It helps us to enhance our focus because when it's time to work again, our brain actually had time to recharge. It helps us enhance our mood because we're doing those things that fuel us. So with all of this being said, I invite you right now to check in with yourself. How do you feel about this outrageous idea of intentionally making more time for fun in your life? Do you feel open to it? Do you feel some resistance coming up? Are you wondering how on earth that could possibly work in your schedule? Are you questioning what you would even do because you have no idea what you like to do for fun? Whatever's coming up for you is exactly right. All we need to do right now is notice what's coming up. Okay? So now we've talked about some of the reasons why it is so hard for many of us to make time for fun. There's a lot more wrapped up in this. We could probably go into several more episodes on it. But for now, we've talked about some of the key reasons why many of us struggle to make time for fun and also why it's so important, right? We've talked about why it's key and can really help us thrive. So now let's talk about how to actually identify what you might want to do for fun. What is fun for you? This might be a really challenging question for some of you to answer. Some of you might be like, Paula, are you kidding me? Of course, this is easy. I like to do blah, blah, blah. But for those of you who are struggling to identify things that are fun for you, please know you are in very good company. This was a huge challenge for me. I remember the first time my coach asked me, well, what do you want to do for fun? What's fun for you? And I just came up blank. I genuinely had no idea what was fun for me. And that was frankly a real wake-up call in and of itself because I had no clue. But I'll tell you, it took me some time to start uncovering those answers and then actually make space for them. I'm not going to lie, it's been a journey, but it was so powerful when I started taking those steps and seeing the positive impact that it had. And step one in that journey is to start creating curiosity for yourself around what you like to do for fun. So ask yourself, what could be fun? What do I like to do for fun? And if you don't know, again, not a problem, no problem at all. Instead, you can ask yourself, okay, well, what kind of sounds like fun? What could be fun? What have you heard other people do when they talk about their hobbies and how they spend their time? Did any of that sound of interest? What did you love to do when you were little? Think back to when you were 6 or 11, when you were 16. What did you love to do then? There's so much wisdom that you can learn about yourself by slowing down to consider these questions. And I invite you to spend a little bit of time creating an actual list of things that you might want to do for fun. Now, again, some of you will have no problem getting a piece of paper and creating several pages of lists of things of fun. That's incredible. Others of you will have maybe a pretty short list, but you confidently know these 5 things are my jam. I love it. This is what I want to do for fun all the time. Okay, great. But for those of you like me who are coming up pretty blank when you think about having fun, I invite you to grab a sheet of paper and write down the following 5 categories and then leave some space underneath each one so you can brainstorm underneath each one. Okay. So the first category is self-care and relaxation. The second category is connection. The third is physical activity. The fourth is creativity. And the fifth is travel and adventure. And as a reminder for everybody, I always have all of the show notes and the transcript and all of these things beautifully laid out by the wonderful Yolanda on my website. So if you are thinking, wait, hold on, you just went through those really fast. Don't worry, they are all there on my website. You can go there through the show notes. But again, we have these 5 different categories of self-care and relaxation, connection, physical activity, creativity, and travel and adventure. Now, there are probably more categories too. These are just the 5 that I thought of when I was creating this episode, okay? But what I've found for many of us is that our brains can sometimes do a little better with brainstorming when we don't just have to stare at a blank page. And instead, we have a more focused prompt with some examples to help spark ideas. So again, I encourage you to write those 5 categories on your paper. And if you have other categories, please feel free to write those too. And then we're going to start brainstorming ideas of things that could be fun underneath each one of those examples. And I'm going to give you some ideas as well to get some ideas flowing. And then you can build from there and add whatever sounds like fun to your personal list. And what I really love about this approach of creating a list is, first of all, you're essentially creating a menu of fun for yourself, which will very much come in handy when we start talking about how to actually schedule time for it in the next episode. But also, this approach is providing a wide range of different kinds of activities. And I really like this because it's giving you a bunch of different options which you can choose from when you have different amounts of time or different amounts of energy, because we don't all have 5 hours to do some big project. Sometimes we have 30 minutes. And so we need different options from which to choose from that list. Okay. So we're going to make this list. And like I said, the first category is self-care and relaxation. What sounds like a lot of fun for you in this category? Or what could potentially be fun for you if you're like, I don't know, I genuinely have no clue. This could be fun. Great. Start brainstorming. So with the category of self-care, it could look like reading or journaling. Maybe it's meditating. Maybe it's listening to your favorite playlist on Spotify or podcast episode when you're sitting out on your deck in the sunshine. Maybe you're getting in the car and you're going for a long drive. Maybe it's working out in the garden and you're planting some new things or you're weeding out the garden. Again, take some time to think about what feels like it's recharging you, it's refueling you, what feels super supportive and fun in regard to that category of self-care and relaxation. Then we have our second category, which is connection. Now, this is a pretty broad category, and as it suggests, it essentially encompasses any kind of fun that you might have with other people, connecting with others. So this could look like getting together with your girlfriends for brunch on the weekend, or maybe it's a regular phone chat or Zoom chat with your best friend. Maybe you are involved in certain volunteer activities, or you unofficially meet up with a group of dog owners at the dog park every Saturday morning. Maybe you host a game night at your house, or you play with your other friends online on some video game or something. Whatever it is for you that you like to do for fun, connecting with others, write that in this category. Then we have our third category, which is exploring physical activity. Now, for some people, this list might be super long. If you are my younger sister, you would have a list that is several pages. She's always on the go. Regardless of the weather or the season, she is biking or climbing or cross-country skiing or paddleboarding or running. I mean, you name it, she's doing it. And you know what else? She's having fun when she's doing it. But then you have other people like Paula Engebretson who have a much shorter list here. And it might look like walking your dog or dancing to some music at the end of the day or lifting weights to a good playlist. Or maybe the pickleball craze finally piqued your curiosity enough that you decided to try it out and you joined a team. Whatever lights you up when it comes to movement and physical activity, or something that has potentially piqued your interest and you're interested in exploring it, write that in this third category. Then we get to category number 4, and this is considering what you love to do when it comes to creativity. What feels like fun and play through the lens of creating? I think that so many of us have incredible creativity just waiting to be unleashed. But unfortunately, we've told ourselves a whole bunch of stories like, I'm just not artistic. I'm not good at it. I'm not musical. I can't paint. I can't draw. I can't write. I can't make anything, right? And we have these stories that really prevent us from ever even trying. And today I want to challenge that a bit because there are so many different ways that we can really stretch and strengthen our creativity muscle. And while it might take some experimentation to find what type feels really good for you, I'm telling you, it's absolutely worth it when you find that thing or you find those things. So maybe you're working on some poetry that you've been turning over in your mind over the last couple of days, or maybe you sign up for a ceramics class. Maybe you pull out your musical instrument, you sit down to the piano or something, you start playing again. In fact, that's one of my goals over the next several months. From 5th grade all the way through my undergraduate years, I was a pretty serious trumpet player. I played in wind ensemble and jazz ensemble and salsa bands. I mean, you name it, I was playing in it. And I loved it. It was so much fun for me. And then I went to grad school and I put it all away and I haven't played since. And as I was thinking about this podcast episode and I was kind of outlining the categories and doing this experiment myself, I realized, oh my gosh, it sounds super fun to pull out my horn again. So that's now on my list. Maybe you have an instrument you haven't played for a while as well. Maybe for you, it's learning a new craft or pulling out your sewing machine that you used to love using, but because of object permanence, you put it away one day when you had company over and you forgot that it was there. Been there. I know it well. So again, what sounds like fun for you when it comes to making, when it comes to creating? And then finally, we have our 5th category, which is travel and adventure. So when you think about this category, what comes up for you? Maybe you're a person who loves the thrill of exploring new locations and trying new foods and meeting new people. And the idea of travel and adventure is just one big category of fun for you, and your list is super long. It's amazing. Now, for myself, this is not really the case because I tend to have a really hard time with transitions, and the planning required for travel and all of that transition is decidedly in the not fun category for me. So when I'm listing out this category of fun under travel and adventure, it's with these intentional caveats of I need to allow for enough time for transition, and I need to have a lot of support in the executive functioning required for all the planning with travel. So again, whether you're a big adventurer and you can't wait for the next time you hop on a plane, or you just pick a place on the map for your road trip, or you prefer to stick closer to home and you like adventuring around your city and small towns and taking adventures to art museums and science museums, all of it's awesome. So lean into what is fun for you when it comes to travel and adventure and add that to your list. Now, as I'm sharing these suggestions, I also am just going to state what might already be quite obvious, but you're likely going to find some overlap between these categories, and that's totally okay. For example, maybe I want to take a ceramics class with a friend, and that would be both connection and creativity. Amazing. I love that. So notice if your brain wants to overthink it and then start thinking, oh, what if I'm doing it wrong? Which category should I put it in? It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. Instead, what these categories are here to do are to simply help spark ideas so that you can get some fun options flowing and have them at the ready so you don't have to decide later. Now, again, as I mentioned, many of us do struggle with making time for fun, or we haven't had time for fun in years. And because of this, we might have a hard time identifying what it actually means to have fun as an adult. So the point of this first episode, right? This is going to be a 2-part episode. The point of this first part is to normalize that experience if you are feeling that way, and to also provide a simple approach to get the ideas flowing of finding what's fun for you. And that, my dear listener, is your homework this week. I invite you to first notice all the stories you have around making time for fun and play and rest. What comes up when you think about that? When was the last time you intentionally set aside time for fun? Was that challenging to do, or was it super easy? Were you able to stay present with the fun activity, or were you constantly thinking about all the other things you quote unquote should be doing? What was it like for you? Start exploring that. And then I invite you to create this list of fun things that you love to do, or you used to love doing, or you could potentially enjoy doing. Create that list for yourself. And then next week, we're going to dive in and talk about how to actually schedule time for fun so that you're intentionally making time for what I've been rediscovering to be such a key ingredient in living a full life. And in the meantime, please do pop over to Instagram and let me know what you're finding. What are your thoughts around fun? What do you like to do for fun? I can't wait to hear about it. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you're ready to take these concepts deeper and apply them to your life, if you're ready to learn how to support your ADHD in a way that works for you, then I invite you to check out today's show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/group to learn more about my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome. If it sounds like a great fit, you can add your name to the waitlist and be the first to know when enrollment opens for the next cohort. Also, have you grabbed my free ebook called 10 Tips to Work with Your ADHD? It's filled with actionable strategies you can use to help you reduce your overwhelm, reclaim your time, and get things done. You can grab it now through the show notes and put them to use today. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.